Which brings me to the next hilarious bit in the whole narrative. What's this? The New York Times now acknowledging that maybe people don't like violent riots? Here's the funny part. I tell you what, man, the New York Times wrote this article, Abolish the Police? Those who survived the chaos in Seattle aren't so sure. What is it like when a city abandons a neighborhood and the police vanish? Business owners describe a harrowing experience of calling for help and being left all alone. You know what's funny about it? They mentioned specifically that the main guy in their story is a gay man of Middle Eastern descent who moved from Texas there so he could be more comfortably out. And the reason that's funny is not because of this person. It's because they ignored his plight. When the CHAZ was going on in Seattle and Antifa was romping about with guns, oppressing this man, harassing him, harassing his customers, and barricading him in some instances from even coming in to where his store was, the New York Times wrote a whole bunch of articles that were just like, that were dumb things like, why is everybody talking about Antifa? It's a summer of love. We're going to have a great time. It's
business
peaceful.
owners love CHAZ. Really? Do they?
Yep.
Go ahead.
This guy, look at this. Young white men wielding guns would harangue customers, as well as Mr. Khan, a gay man of Middle Eastern descent who moved from Texas so he could be more comfortably out. To get into his coffee shop, he sometimes had to seek the permission of self-appointed armed guards to cross a border they'd erected. They barricaded us all in here, Mr. Khan said, and they were sitting in lawn chairs with guns for 23 days in June. About 6 blocks in the city's Capitol Hill neighborhood were claimed by left-wing demonstrators and declared police-free. Protesters hailed it as liberation from police oppression from white supremacy and a catalyst for a national movement. And then they go and talk about, George Floyd, how it started. They say some even call for abolishing the police altogether and closing down precincts, which happened in Seattle. That has left small business owners as lonely voices in progressive areas, arguing that police officers are necessary and that cities cannot function without a robust public safety presence. Yeah. Well, here we go. They mentioned Portland, Oregon, many other businesses. Yeah. In interviews, they expressed support for the Black Lives Matter movement, but they also worried their businesses already debilitated by the coronavirus pandemic will struggle to survive if police departments and city governments cannot protect them. You know what? I'm sorry, man. I don't really care anymore, to be honest. You know why?
Because they didn't stand up for themselves when they were there?
Because these cities vote for them. And look, at a certain point, I can be like, I am sorry this is happening to you. But after months of this, with the Democratic states locking down and destroying the local economies, conservative Republican states didn't do this as much. They're doing it in some places. With the Democrats and some Republicans, overseeing the arrest of business owners, at a certain point, you've got to leave because you are being targeted, because the government is oppressive, or you can't vote for these people. But I'll tell you what, right now, there's a tendency. I see these journalists post on Twitter. Some of them, these are people who actually quit the news industry, will point out, has anybody checked the numbers on these, conservative Republican states that didn't lock down and they're doing fine? And you look at New York that went nuts and is the worst in the country.
Yeah, and then you got de Blasio and Cuomo out there touting that they're the best. They handled it the best since day one.
While they literally laugh as they burn everything to the ground.
Yep.
I covered a story earlier on on one of my channels where they've put homeless people in Upper West Side luxury hotels.
Yeah, 3 of them.
And do you know what these people are doing?
Yeah, they're pissing in the hallways. They're doing drugs.
Everywhere.
Offering crack to, the woman, the mother who's walking their 2-year-old kid down the street. It's crazy.
I'm gonna give you guys a family-friendly warning: earmuffs if you've got kids. All right, I'm gonna say it one more time. If you got kids listening, earmuffs, because here we go. There's a photo of a dude cranking it on the sidewalk outside this hotel. Yep, wow. That's what New York City has become.
Oof.
How crazy, man. And the Daily Mail.
It's going back in time.
Yeah, they really want to bring it all back to the way things used to be. Maybe, can you think of any reason why de Blasio is doing this?
To de-gentrify New York? I'm kind of serious, though. I mean, if you think about it, if all the wealthy people are leaving, all the property value is going to die out.
And then it's an opportunity for people to snatch it all up.
Yeah.
So these billionaires will buy up all these garbage properties.
Yeah. And I didn't even think about it that way. But I guess if you think about the long run, all the people with money are like, you know what, I'll just buy it. And while it's in terrible shape, whatever. I don't care.
Yeah.
Eventually it'll get back.
You know, Bill de Blasio was a landlord.
Of course he is.
Yeah, he makes like $9,000 a month, according to one article I was reading, from rental income. So here's what happens. They burn New York City to the ground.
They buy it up.
They, as in the establishment politicians, their buddies. So New York becomes uninhabitable for a couple of years, relatively.
Wow.
Property values collapse to a substantial degree. Wealthy real estate developers come in and buy up as much as they can from all the small businesses. And look, one of the issues I have with the progressive tax system right now is that it stops at, I think, $250K, which means if you make, 300, you're being taxed very heavily above 250, which makes it harder for you to become a wealthy industrialist or real estate agent, or tycoon or whatever.
I see.
But if you're making millions upon millions of dollars, you're being taxed at the same percentage. It's easier for you with your millions to make big investments. So this is one of the things I really do agree with Bernie Sanders on, is expanding the progressive tax brackets. In fact,
that makes sense. I can see that.
So Bernie's proposal actually would lower taxes for people who make, I think, like 250 to 500. You'd pay less, because not everybody who makes 250, not everybody who makes more than 250 is making 50 billion.
So it would just basically, expand
the numbers. It would stretch it out.
Yeah,
and I think that makes sense.
Makes sense. Yeah.
It definitely makes sense. And then what ends, but anyway, that's a whole other issue. The point is, there are people in New York City who are wealthy. Maybe they make $500,000 a year. These are the 1% in New York. But you make $500,000 a year, you might own 1 or 2 buildings in New York City. You're someone like Bezos, who's got, liquid assets in hundreds of billions, 100-something billion, and he owns a bunch of hard assets. Bezos can, Elon Musk, billionaires can start buying up more properties with less risk. So here's what happens. When Bill de Blasio just decimates these cities, then the people who are making $500,000 have to sell their 1 or 2 properties. Maybe they have a little bit more than that. I mean, I think a lot of the people making $500,000 probably are real estate developers, probably own rental properties. But now they've got no renties, no rent coming in. So they sell at a massive discount in desperation, and they get out of the city. Then the big wigs, the real money, they can come in and snap their fingers. They tell their real estate, their management company, they say, hey, buy up that whole row of buildings. They're up for sale. I'll take them all for dirt. And then we'll sit on them for a couple of years. I ain't got nothing to worry about. And now, 5 years from now or whatever, when the city's recovered, it will have a lot less individual ownership of these properties. So maybe that's why they're burning it all down. Anyway, the main point, however, is more so what the far left has been doing with the rioting. And that's another point. Why would Bill de Blasio allow these people to go out and riot? Why would he paint these messages on the ground? This resulted in driving away 500,000 people and some of the wealthier people who live there. It's going to make the property values of New York go in the gutter.
I'll keep my eye on it. Buy a building in a few years.
Yeah, well.
No joke.
I'm not going anywhere near New York ever again, man.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because look, unless you're going to be one of these ultra wealthy, billionaires or millionaires, you're going to be smacked down.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that story from Donald Trump where he was like walking with one of his kids and he pointed to the homeless guy and says, see that man? He's wealthier than I am. Because Trump's liabilities were higher than his assets or whatever.
Yeah.
He owed more than he actually had, but he was still a billionaire. It's like a weird how that works.
Right.
And it reminds me of that. There are going to be a lot of people who will buy up a bunch of properties, even if they're not super wealthy, once they go down to the gutter, and then they'll figure out ways to maintain it just enough so that when the property value goes up, they'll turn a quick profit. All in all, though, I think ultimately the city is just going to be burnt to the ground. Figuratively.
I agree.
So I would stay away from them.
Well, I mean, there's also the conspiracy that we may go to war and that they're trying to keep everyone from the big cities.
Well, that's what somebody said in the chat the other day.
Oh, yeah?
In the super chat. That what if they're trying to push people out of cities out of fear of some kind of strike?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe, I guess. I think maybe is always the easiest way to look at it because, we're dangerously close to war with China. Trump's actions are really going to ruffle some feathers, man.
It's true, yeah.
So it's possible. And what's like I said it before, man, you think about the results of a lot of this and it is beneficial to the United States in the event of a war. Not the civil unrest and discord. That's bad for us. This unity.
Course.
But if you've got people leaving cities, decentralizing our economy, going, only essential jobs now. So people are getting away from vanity jobs, trying to find jobs that actually are essential to help the country function. They're buying guns like crazy.
Yeah, record numbers.
So,
yeah.
if we did go to war, well, we're going to have a ton of guns everywhere. A lot of armed people.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you what.
Trained. I mean, they're not only buying, I mean, I'm reading stories about it. Everyone's buying guns, but everyone's training. They're talking about how, they were scared to have a gun. They didn't believe in guns at the beginning of the year for most of their life, but now they've got a gun and they've gotten training, which is very important. And now they're like, I feel like I can handle myself in situations where a gun is required. And it's like, good, because you should know what you're doing with it.
I tweeted this out, I think it was early today. About 7 months ago, I said straight up, I do not want any guns in my house, period. Just no, just not happening. I'm not going to deal with this. Then COVID happened, and I was like, wow, people are rushing to buy guns. They're worried about this. I should consider this.
Yeah.
Then the riots happened, and I was like, one gun, please. And I went to the store, and now I have several. And Crowder actually got me a SIG, but we're trying to expand and move to a bigger facility, so we're a bit jammed up in that regard. But yes, Crowder did send me that SIG, and it's chilling, waiting for me, modified, all ready to go. I just can't go and pick it up. It's got to be shipped to a new location.
A workaholic.
It's not just that. It's got to be shipped to the proper location. Put it simply.
Exactly.
And right now it had to be modified, so it had to be sent to a specific facility. Now that it's got to be sent to another place. But we're like a week out or 2 weeks from relocating. So I'm like, if they're gonna send, it's a weird. Yeah, we're jammed up.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll tell you what, man. I was thinking about it, and I was, so we had the AG in New York.
Yeah.
Is trying to dissolve the NRA.
Oh yeah.
I don't know anything about the NRA, to be honest, other than like they're like a really, really old, like I guess they call themselves the oldest civil rights organization because it was formed in like 1870 something.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so I don't know much about them. They're accused of a bunch of wrongdoing and stuff, but it's interesting to me now that I'm paying attention to this because I'm like, when I see these Democrats now say things like we should have a nationwide gun ban on certain things, I'm now I see myself going like, no.
Yeah. No.
How dare you? 7 months ago, nope. It was the riots that did it. And I sat and thought about it really, and I was like, oh, wow, my opinion really did change on this.
Yep.
Because the threat became, too big. And I think that really is a good way to understand people's political opinions on certain issues. The people who are pro 2A, many of them live out in the middle of nowhere and must defend themselves.
Yep.
They don't have this luxury of a cop who's around the corner. And even when the cop is around the corner, there's no guarantee they'll be there fast enough if someone breaks in your house.
Well, now we got these places where you're talking about where they were around the corner. Keyword there were. They're no longer there. They're defunding them.
Right.
So they're making these cities that used to have this presence of police around the corner that you can be like, you know what? They're around the corner. They'll be here in no time. We don't need guns in the cities.
This goes back to the whole Democrats. The riots have ruined them, in my opinion.
Yep, I agree.
Because now I'm thinking about it, and if they controlled the riots, I probably would still be complacent and comfortable, not thinking twice about needing self-defense.
That's a good point.
But because they supported Black Lives Matter and they supported the rioting, and they still do.
Yep, and and they're shutting down, going to church.
Yep.
Pretty much anything other than rioting, they're cracking down on.
Now I'm more like, I can't support anybody who comes out for gun control in any capacity, literally any. And it's because of the riots and because they've demoralized the police. They've stripped them of their access and resources, and they openly violate the law to benefit themselves.
Absolutely, all the time, nonstop.
Yeah.
It's getting more and more blatant too.
So now I'm sitting here thinking like these people hate me, they oppose me. And I have done nothing to them. And it's the weirdest thing to see like Bill de Blasio, all the horrifying things this man has done.
Yeah.
Like, man, I tell you, he really hates people. He just hates. It's right there. He bypasses the permit process using taxpayer funds to paint a political message that will benefit his campaign, and then has the NYPD guarding that message in front of Trump Tower.
27 officers, more than any unit that's even in the NYPD. So not only are they defunding the police, taking the crime units out of these areas that need them, that now, I don't remember the exact number, over 180% increase in homicides now happening in these areas. But he's got 27 officers guarding this Black Lives Matter, and they're actually, there was an article I read today about they're thinking about just not repainting it because it's been vandalized so much.
Yeah.
It's causing taxpayers more money now. Well, I mean, just money, period, and it's too much.
If it were up to me and I was going to be filing action, I'll just put it this way. My personal thoughts on this is that Bill de Blasio should immediately be impeached
Absolutely.
For taking taxpayer funds, and all 27 of those officers should be fired and be stripped of their retirements or whatever they have coming to them. They should immediately lose their jobs. Done. End of story. Lose their jobs and any benefit they should have had. Kicked out, stripped, nothing. I'll tell you why. You aid and abet a corrupt politician who is illegally placing a campaign message and stand guard over it. That's your choice. And if you want to stand against the people and against the Constitution, I will absolutely be standing against you. So how about this? We get some legal action against Bill de Blasio for violating the law and stealing taxpayer funds to repeatedly defend a political message for his campaign. And all of the cops who thought, I'm just gonna do whatever I'm told and support this corrupt politician stealing taxpayer funds, you're along with them. I'll tell you what, man, if you're standing next to the criminal and you're blocking us from dealing with it, you're aiding and abetting. Just like I said with Antifa and the wall of moms. You want to be a wall of moms standing in front of these far left extremists throwing explosives? You may as well be, you're aiding, you are literally contributing to that.
That's another gang.
The
moms.
Oh,
they're
definitely.
They're all dressing together. They're all dressing the same. They're all attacking the precincts. They're just as guilty as the other rioters.
They are the other rioters. It's the same thing.
You're absolutely
right.
They
just changed their clothes.
But they're a legitimate gang. They've got a group. They've got a name. They've got an outfit. They're attacking just the same. That's a gang.
Yeah. And
I
they
know.
have a name,
I'm
too.
I'm
the Wall of Moms.
Slamming it home because I want people to realize that.
So listen, I am absolutely fed up when I read these articles that are so tribalist. They will defend the police who are violating the law. And I'm like, nah, I'm not playing that game.
Yep.
My views, my defense is for the Constitution of these United States, of this country,
yep.
of upholding the law. So I'm no fan of the cops who killed Breonna Taylor. I'm no fan of police brutality. But I'll tell you this, there is no excuse for defending someone like Bill de Blasio. There is no excuse for seizing the legal firearm of someone defending their property from a violent mob that they're scared of because these people have been implicated in murdering others. So when I see these videos, man, of the cops, like there was a cop arresting, what's Bevelyn? Was that her name?
Yeah,
Bevelyn Beatty.
Bevelyn Beatty. Yeah.
As she's yelling for funding the police, I'm like, yeah, you know what, man? There are a lot of really, really good cops in this country, especially the local guys here that I talk to. These guys are awesome.
Yeah, they are.
And there are a lot of cops that straight up said, we will not enforce unconstitutional law. Remember that one cop who did that viral video and he got fired for it?
Really? He got fired for that? Out in Seattle or something, right? He was talking out about it, yeah.
And he was like, right. I will not be enforcing unconstitutional laws and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And then they terminate him.
Yep.
These guys are heroes.
I agree.
But the people who are like, I don't care about you, I don't care about the Constitution, if Bill de Blasio wants to siphon public funds for his reelection campaign, I'll stand right next to him and protect him. Like that to me is someone pissing on the Constitution.
Truth.
I'm not happy about it, man.
Or how about, what's the Mayor Garcetti? Is that his name in L.A.?
Yep.
With draconian measures, like what is he doing?
It's these cities, man.
Yeah, exactly.
They find people who will willfully say, I don't care about the Constitution.
Yep.
But it's amazing. You go to these suburbs and you go to smaller towns and you start to find more cops that are like, nah, I don't play that game. The Constitution is what we're here to defend. You know what I mean?
Definitely, yeah.
But we even have it out here in the Philly suburbs, the guys who arrested the business owners. And I'm you know what, man? Maybe it's it's so weird. When I hear the lefties call people bootlickers, it's usually for the stupidest nonsensical reason. That's like just not true. But it reminds me of when the left actually, like when the left left me is the easiest way to put it.
Yeah.
I remember when I was standing next to people who were like, war is bad. And I was like, yes, it is.
Yep.
And now Trump is like, war is bad. And I'm like, thank you, sir. And I look to my left and they're like, no, we're he said it, so we're out.
Yep.
So you never really thought war was bad, did you?
Well, it's interesting because the whole walk away movement, why we didn't really go anywhere. You're saying the left walked away. They're the ones who kept veering further and further away. Now we can't even see them. They're over by my hand. You can't see that anymore.
They're so far left. They're off the cliff. They're falling into the ocean. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I'm still in the middle. I'm still very much right in the center where I've always been. You know?
So, look, I see these articles, right? There was an article about Abolish Gym where the two gym owners they're being basically harassed by cops and the government and the Democratic mayor, and they eventually got arrested, came back, kicked the door in.
That was awesome. You saw that video?
When they kicked it in?
Boof.
Yeah. And there's some great
America.
photos too.
Oh, yeah.
But there were people there saying, recognize the cops are just doing what they're being forced to do this and all this stuff. And I'm like, no, they aren't. Could you imagine if everyone in this country who stood up for themselves stood up at the same time? All of this would be over, and everything would be back to being great. You know, back to like the wonderful and glorious economy under Trump, which was the best in generations. The best numbers of our lives, Jim Cramer says, record low unemployment, people's salaries were skyrocketing. That's where we want to go. Mm-hmm. To get there, we need everybody of good conscience to stand up and say, we've had enough of these ridiculous people burning things down. We've had enough of these corrupt politicians stealing taxpayer funds. And we don't get it.
Well, the problem is it's ignorance. People are too busy being complacent in their lives that are rather comfortable compared to other places in the world, compared to the past history of humanity, like what we've got right now. People have a lot on their minds that isn't politics, that isn't, these things that if we all knew what was really going on, it would be really easy for everyone to go, you know what? We're all sick of this, right? Yeah. All right, let's get up and go march.
Organizing.
But no one's that like aware. Like you and I, we're in it. We see it. Every day we're witnessing and analyzing everything, breaking it down, and not everyone has that time even to even do a little bit of this kind of stuff.
Remember when the police union in New York came out and was just like tearing into this defund the police stuff?
Yeah.
He said something. One of the union, I think it was the union president, said 375 million interactions with cops, overwhelmingly positive.
Yeah.
He's absolutely correct.
Yeah.
My question then is, why are they allowing Bill de Blasio to manipulate them this way for his political ambitions? So this is the big issue, right? I was talking to a friend of mine about all the Black Lives Matter stuff. Mm-hmm. And she said, where are the conservative organizations going out protesting, creating petitioning their local politicians? And I was like, that's a good question. And where are the moderates too? It's not just about conservatives, but I'll tell you this, the moderates, in my opinion, I have the most disdain for. Yep. People like me who have similar opinions to mine, because conservatives have been actively out fighting, creating media, posting messages, having church events, having Blue Lives Matter rallies, and the disaffected liberal types are few and far between, and most won't say anything. And I'll tell you what, I've talked to a lot of them, and they're very scared. I think it's because they're still lefty, but they know they will be destroyed by the left. So right now, what do you get? You get a middle that should be the loudest, but won't say anything. And the conservatives are picking up the slack for the scared liberals who won't stand up to the far left. You see that letter from Harper's where all these liberals came out and they were like, cancel culture is bad.
Yeah.
And they got attacked.
Mm-hmm.
Where were you when every single conservative was coming out and saying censorship is bad, cancel culture is bad? They were saying, well, if I just keep my mouth shut, I'll be safe. And then it was too late. They expect everyone on the right to protect their rights. Meanwhile, the far left is taking over more and more of the Democratic Party, gaining more ground and just tearing everything apart and attacking and canceling these people. Finally, we get like J.K. Rowling to stand up. Mm-hmm. These are the people who should have stood up a long time ago, but they've been bending the knee for so long. They've emboldened and empowered the far left. And that's something that Trump supporters say all the time, that the far left is only possible because liberals and empowered them and refused to stand up against them. Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. We do the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. If you want to catch the full show, tune in to this channel, subscribe, hit the like button, or check us out on iTunes and Spotify, and we will soon have this podcast up for free on all podcast platforms. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all in the next episode.